This panel is really all about, I think how ABM has enabled a whole kind of new digital motion. And so I thought maybe a good place to start off is how do you define account-based, right? It is something that everyone it has so many jobs that it can do. It can mean so many different things. Maybe we just go through it quickly and, right, we probably wax poetic for the whole panel, but just quickly, what does ABM mean to you and sort of how does your organization use it? It's a big global enterprise, high growth enterprise SaaS company, and one of the data providers behind this whole ABM.
Well, and we do ABM.
And you're doing
Can I just turn this off? And we do actually market our solution.
Yes.
Stop. It's like very meta.
All right, so Brittney, do you want to start us off?
Sure. ABM is a list. No, I'm kidding. Depending on the day, who defines it. No, I think, for me, ABM is really around how are we thinking about an account at very different levels, whether that's at a person level, at a function level, or at an account level. And what's the journey and the message and the outcome that we're trying to drive with that account, and how are we then doing that? And I think, so EY is a very, very, very matrix organization. We've got sectors and service lines and geos, and all with their own leaders, all with their own marketing teams, all with their own ABM list, and all their own process in terms of how they come to that account prioritization. And how they even look at it. And so, for us, ABM is something we are really in the throes of trying to tackle and trying to understand, because it can be a little bit of the Wild West.
I bet, yeah. And I think something I know we'll talk about more later is for such a matrix, massive organization, when you get down to that account level, how many different organizations touch that account of the complexity of backgrades. It'd be very interesting to hear about. Patrick, what is ABM to you?
In addition to all that, to me, it's just, it's a narrowing of the aperture for who you're going to put your bets on. So there's a list of named accounts that we're saying we are going to ring our fair share with. Some of those, by the way, to the Visa point, are going to be existing customers. Like, we're betting we can grow Bank of Montreal by 20% in the year. Even though that's an existing customer, we can sell them something else, sell more seats, whatever. So they can be the mix of existing customers and, of course, prospects that are ICP. And you just are 360 those people with surround sound in their environments, as we talked about earlier. If you think they're going to come to your site or do all that, they probably won't. So you have to interject yourself into their world and then just be ready when they come to yours, ever so briefly. That's just kind of it. And so it's really all about exclusion. Who are we willing to not go after, so that we can really double down on who we have to win.
And that's a great perspective. Putney.
I think the same. It's a prioritized, intentional approach to engaging the accounts you want to. I think one of the things that I have learned being at Bombora, so putting my marketing Bombora hat on, and we work together on this, is we have a somewhat complicated go-to-market approach for some of the parts of our business. And so I've needed to think about ABM as actually having, in some ways, having multiple accounts in it. So by this, I mean, if I want to drive digital audience spend through a brand, that brand influences what digital audiences are used. There's often a media agency that's buying for them, and there's a platform they're buying on where the platform sellers are also engaged. So when we think about, we want Amex to use more of our digital audiences, I actually have to think about it a little bit as those three component parts. And I need to reach out to them separately, but actually to get the ABM impact, I actually have to think about all of those players, which is an even more complex sort of buying group than just all the players within one organization. And that's just been something that in the last year that I've been at Bombora, I've had to wrap my head around as a marketer of how do I do that in a coordinated fashion?
All right, great. So I guess to sort of dive into that, all of you had sort of, I think all of you identified the the importance of what you might call propensity to buy or account prioritization or, is it a strategy or a tactic? Because I think this is kind of something we come against as an agency that does a lot of, we believe in account-based marketing as a strategic point of view that often comes to life in what you might think of as an ABM tactic, but sometimes doesn't. Talking about small business. Small business is a great example where the tactic of account-based marketing is really challenging. It's too costly, frankly, based on the ACD of a typical, if you're targeting small business. From your perspective, and I don't know if it's worth diving into, is it a strategy or because of how your org operates, does it have to come to life as a tactic?
There's is it and there's what it should be. Is it a strategy for us? We want it to be. I think it's really interesting from EY's perspective, and Chris is a great example. He sits in financial services from a sector perspective. And so his account prioritization may come to me in one way, and he may look at, State Street Banking as, they're an account that's a priority for me, and here's how I want to target them. I may then see State Street pop up as a priority within our consulting service line for cyber, just, making that up. And so how are we really looking at an account to say, okay, financial services as a sector, cyber, supply chain, whatever it is a field of play, a geo, how are we thinking about this big picture versus everyone sort of targeting with their own message in their own way through their, maybe competing channels at some points. How do we really think about that, and how do we get a cohesive view of an account? And then on the back end of that, how are we going back to the account team and saying, here's all of the touch points in which we reach that account and how we've moved the needle?
Great.
I would just add to that, and here's things that we need you to do. So if you're an account manager, you don't want me, you've made it very clear, don't be reaching out to my customers. Okay, that's fine. You have to reach out to your customers and then show us how that works, and you have to document it for that. So to me, it is much more organizational, philosophy,
Uniform, and we're united after the revenue team.
Like if we're either going to boil the ocean or we're going to go after these people, you can't have it both ways. Which is it? We're going to do that, but we all have a role. Like maybe we're in the lead chair. The other thing is there are, so we use in the case of BlueConic, Bombora, Imaginarium, Octane 11.
It's like we all know each other.
Yeah, type of make double sure. Yeah, we use Hootsuite. So we're using so many things in here in service of our ABM philosophy and strategy. So it's not, there is no ABM software, despite lots of software being called ABM software. That's a really small ingredient in a much larger sort of tapestry.
It's a strategy.
Yeah, that's a strategy.
Actually, in my former company, when I joined that organization in between Bombora and Amex, I joined and I was sort of getting to know the marketing team, and they're like, "Yeah, we do ABM," and I was like, "Tell me about that." And they said, "We have Trivial," and I was like, and it was the idea that the tool was ABM, and I personally believe that you can do ABM with a napkin and a pen and maybe a little bit of conversation. And then there are a whole set of tools and tactics and data providers and, creative partners or whatever that bring that to life. But it is a philosophy and a strategy. And that's kind of it.
Yeah. I remember it was actually at a Bombora conference. It was a conference where you and I first met when they had that SAP team talking, that person from SAP. And they made a very interesting point that was very provocative to me, where they were like, it was just 2 years ago, we were considered like a best-in-class ABM shop, and we were still handing things off on Excel sheets and it worked, by the way, and I think this does, and I find that very, very fascinating how there are these incredibly sophisticated, really great, but with perhaps asterisks per org platforms, the Six Senses, the demand basis of the world, how much, and I know some of your orgs have these, some of your orgs have them and use them, some of your orgs have them and are still trying to navigate how do you make a self-service platform like that effective in your respective organizations, how much of the ABX platforms are they foundational to building a strategic ABM motion, and how much can they actually, or are they more of an impediment because of the complexity of actually making them useful?
I mean, I think there's definitely considerations that you have to think about with the platforms in terms of, match rates and things like that. But we wouldn't create an ABM strategy based on a platform. Mm-hmm. And so, to Putney's point, I think you have these things that enable you to do ABM, but it's irrespective of the platform itself. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that's what we see a lot. I think a lot of people think of the platforms as shorthand for an effective ADM or ADX strategy. And oftentimes, then we've heard this throughout the day, then sort of it happens. And they're sitting there like with a self-service platform that no one kind of had. There is, in fact, a strategy. It's like a tactical tool with no one to, Yeah. Can't tell me times we go into an organization and we'll be working with them for 6 or 8 weeks. And someone's like, we do have, by the way, we have 6 cents. We just really haven't, we're on like month 14 and we haven't started using it, So, and I think, the idea of unbundled ABM is a little bit, those are bundled solutions, very powerful, very, very compelling. When you look at unbundling it, like Patrick, you were kind of describing, you have this job to be done in this tool. What are the jobs to be done that you need the sort of MarTech or technology to support to allow an account-based go-to-market?
The biggest thing that I think of is some of the intense stuff, because it's, we have a big grasp.
Also, that smile, Cheshire like smile, just that broke out over funny.
That's tequila and soda.
So Dom's over there.
We don't know what goes on outside of the 4 walls, or we didn't. And you know what you send, you know what you run, you know what you produce, you know all that, but you don't know, first of all, who else and even your org is doing their own things. Account managers, sellers, C-level people, things. You don't know what analysts are telling. So it's the whole community engaging with this main account base. And when they start to prick their ears up, the sooner you can detect that, the sooner you can be ready when they are, if they ever do become ready to have a conversation with you. So that early warning mechanism is absolutely critical. And those particular pieces of software where they could forget some idea that there could be an inbound coming in to be there.
Mm-hmm. With EY, I'd be curious, because when you were describing other people maybe doing something else, I'm sure with EY, there's always people doing things.
Yeah. I'll never forget when I first started, I grew up in agency and then moved to EY and then interviewed. And I was like, if they're, sort of a centralized approach to things. And she looked at me as if I had lost my marbles and they're like, cool, I'll list. No, but yeah, there's definitely, again, with the matrix organizational structure and just how we're set up, you have on any given account, there could be 20 to 50 people working on, and someone is, really responsible for driving the agenda with the CFO, and someone else is really responsible for driving the agenda with another buyer. And by the way, we don't prospect in the traditional sense. We already work with everyone, but we're an accounting and tax firm by foundation, and we do all of these other things, but the CIO may be like, I have no idea who you guys are. And so we have this other sort of area where we may be much further along in the journey with one buyer than we are with another. And so the message and how we get to that person and who's getting to that person is very, very different.
That's and so how you're getting to that person and who they are, Bombora obviously is a platform that kind of, it's like you said, the gold standard of the intent. Well, I think it's created.
I didn't say it.
Great.
Great.
Yeah, as a tool or a platform, it not only sort of, it brings a lot of these things together, both by providing the capability of powering predictive analytics through intent, also marrying the ability to target by account through media by developing audiences. How have you found, you're able to kind of enable the digital motion for B2B companies using it?
I mean, our perspective is that we're going to provide the intelligence, and it's all, it's prioritization, it's helping with personalization and actually understanding where folks are in the research journey and what topics they're looking at, and then turning that data into actionable audiences that you can use anywhere. And so we're all about the intelligence, and our perspective has been whatever tool you're working on, be it one of the more sort of single touch tools, or if you're using a whole complicated tech stack, we have just really focused our efforts on ensuring that our data can be integrated anywhere and everywhere in as both seamless ways, but also to allow for visibility. And so, we think that there are tools that some organizations choose to use that are kind of one-stop traps, and that may be based on their maturity or their staffing level or who knows. And then there are organizations that can have much more complex or multi-tool approaches, and we just support them all. We just focus on the data.
So, as someone who is in the data, which is in many ways the foundation of a account-based strategy, are there any innovations? We've seen Bombora innovate IABM. We are huge fans of the power of account-based CTV. It's something we're piloting right now with our friends over there at UI. Are there innovations that you are very excited about in what is a rapidly evolving space, ABM?
Yeah, I think there are three things that I would say. I think that we're working on and will soon bring to market more granularity on our intent solution. We are never going to go all the way to the person level. We actually don't believe that that's the right approach, and that there's a way to do it that's legal, right? That most organizations would be comfortable with, but we do understand that there's a demand for greater granularity in the data, and so our
Committee and
so we're bringing some persona and some greater geo persona data to market very soon. So that's one area that will just make, we're not going to do some big new product announcement because it's really just a major enhancement on intent. But I think it'll really unlock a lot of additional value if you think about trying to do more and more sort of personalized journeys. We continue to work on our digital audiences from a scale and usability perspective, because again, like you have all that great intelligence, but if you can't go actually engage those accounts where you want to, where they are, it's not as useful. So we're focusing there. And then measurement is a huge area for us. IABM, I think, is really a market-leading capability, but it is only available on the trade desk. And so we're working on making that more widely, that sort of functionality more widely available, because one of our core principles is we talk about it as deployable anywhere. Like what we provide from a data perspective, we want our customers to be able to use wherever they want to. We don't, we are not biased at all. And so then, but it does take work to make sure that all of your data or measurement capabilities are, available places you guys want to use those.
Any other innovations that our esteemed panelists are finding exciting in this, what you might account-based marketing, digital B2B, whatever you want to call it?
I'm the wrong person to ask that question. We just got a CRM, you'll share stuff. Does that right, person?
I think it's just really cool to essentially make sort of a bespoke marketing stack that also has people in it, which is kind of refreshing. So one of the highlights of my week is where I have calls with Scott and Tiso and the team about, they're seeing this in certain data, and we talk to internal teams about this. And I feel like, the move towards ABM has taken marketing kind of out of the shadows and made us more of sort of a hub within a spoken organization. So we're dealing with sales, and account managers, and product, obviously, and all these different people, customer experience, all that.
It's fun to be working inside of more with the team dynamic again instead of just running your campaigns in a vacuum.
That is the power of ABM. You speak, I mean, that is one thing we talk a lot about, probably with all three of you in the work we do, is it unifies the currency between sales and marketing. And just that simple act alone unlocks all kinds of change management capabilities, better communication, et cetera. Well, I thought maybe now we have a few more minutes left. We could open it up to the crew if there are any questions or anyone else. Yes.
Just what's the issue in the kind of Imaginarium sort of current? And it's not often these days you hear a conversation about account-based marketing that doesn't say account-based everything. And they speak about the role that extending, to your point, you were before about the sales and marketing connection, the events and to offline, all that kind of thing. So from each of you, what is your point in terms of the account-based everything approach, whether it's a strategy or a tactic?
ABM versus ABX.
Is there really alignment with sales when it's kind of that? And they can have it then take the steam, or is it all going the same direction? But versus they're not calling in yet, and I'm expecting marketers to be doing that. She might do total.
I think it's ABX, but I just am too old to change my. I'm going to call it ABM.
Well,
And think about it comprehensively on all the, if that's what you're asking.
That's not just it's from a traditionally lower funnel marketing type to a more full, to not just the monkey elements, but the offline and also online elements. That it's not just marketing anymore, it's an engagement or straight thing level, it's connecting events, whatever the case is, right? And those are very zooming tactics, to data platform, to strategies, all that.
so you guys want to talk?
I'm just saying that it's, plus one, all that stuff. I would agree with it, but it's product though too. So we will make product features and product enhancements, and we will bubble up with the needs or perceived or expressed of our target audience as opposed to going wide. So that's literally how we make product decisions. Is does this help us? If I add this feature, this widget, whatever it is, does it help us win with that defined audience that we as an organization have signed up to go after? If so, let's go ahead and do that. And if not, then why are we doing this again? So it actually permeates all aspects of the organization.
That's a good word. Yeah, and I just add something that's newer for us is, so I have purview over all of our paid media, and typically that has been marketing funded dollars. And we recently have individual account teams coming to us and saying, how do we bake that into our plan? It's business development funded, and it's part of the overarching account plan in terms of how we are thinking about brand to demand and then into sales in that account. So we are seeing more of that in terms of thinking about an account across.
Saying it's out of your budget, it's in the revenue budget.
It comes from the accounts business development budget. Yep.
We're seeing some of that difference.
Yeah.
On the point out.
And I think, Lynch, one super quick thing about, I do think there is a risk to this, which is that by unifying the currency around account, you have this plausible scenario where marketing is at the hub of everything, but then you also risk boiling the ocean about things that the stakeholders who working on, let's say, that ADX strat or ADM strategy, you're not really doing product development at this point. How much, one person on your team may want to pretend they are. Now, so developing a strategic tool to communicate at least in one direction, right? Marketing can develop insights and deliver them here. Or for clients, we have to deal with that, and we deal with that with you guys, with UI all the time. We are developing insights that are tactically relevant to this group that is not a marketing group. It's a sales team or whatever. So I think that having an ABX strategy when marketing owns it or the marketing agency owns it still has to remember its job to be done, which is around marketing-driven growth, and then taking that shared currency of account to drive extra value and sort of a long-term unification. But I do think, and I see this all the time, where people think they can boil the ocean, it's all one thing, and it becomes a mishmash of nothing, and suddenly all these stakeholders are pulled in, and no one owns anything, you know? I don't know if that answers it all, because I do kind of like calling it account-based marketing. I know ABX is sort of the parlance of the moment, and I'm nothing if not willing to go along with the crowd. So I ABX all day long.
Shiny thing.
Yeah, exactly. But I do tend to think that we also can't lose sight of the fact that we're running media at some scale on a company level. It's a lot more efficient. We're trying to drive innovation and communications from that. But we're not the whole company. You know what I mean? So I don't know if that's...
Not the whole company, but market is increasingly voice of the customer. So to go back to what Anteriad was talking about earlier, Gen Z is moving online, away from the golf course, away from that one-to-one relationship, away from the sales conference, moving into a market because marketers understand the dark corners of the internet and the old dirty web, and where people are hiding, and they understand audience insights and that kind of thing. And I think that's why, to what someone else was saying, like make all the connections here, that I must say my biggest challenge these days is my colleagues. Was it Kerry's? No. The internal was the biggest challenge, because if you're the voice of the customer, then it's everything is intersecting through you as a CMO, right? Whether it's product discussions, whether it's marketing discussions, whether it's AI technology, all those kind of things. So media marketing is the intersection of it all, because the customer is the intersection of it all, and marketing is the voice of the customer.
Oh. I mean, no, I may just be riffing on the topic, but I do feel like if I would think about either a world where we weren't doing an account-based strategy or supporting others in their account-based strategy, or maybe a less mature market when we were all younger, I do think it gives marketing more of a seat at the table, right? Because, when I can sit down or I can, walk into one of our sales colleagues' office and I'll be like, what's going on with this account? Because here's all the things that I've seen. What are you doing? Yeah, and it gives us a really tangible conversation, and then we can go and talk to our product folks about, and we have our direct business. We have a large channel business, but our direct business is actually, from a number of accounts, relatively small. So we actually can invest in thinking about this account for an upsell needs this product enhancement. And I do think it's just in a delightful way. I feel like I have a really excellent seat at the table now. And that I wouldn't have if I wasn't being really specific about accounts and holding myself accountable for understanding those accounts and bringing the intelligence to the table.
I think there's one small downside to this, though. And it kind of goes back to the
You're
question
about to
there.
get fired as the same as.
The movie only ends one way for all of us. It's just a question of how long is the movie.
Terrible.
We have to talk here. There is a certain risk that you do become intertwined, though, with sales outcomes. So if I'm going to tell you that we have but 3 North Stars, and it's EBITDA, bookings, and pipeline, those 3 are not, God, we need drinks. Those 3 are not created equal. They're not really created equal. Because if you're not booking, shit starts to get relevant, right? If you have a really robust pipeline, but we're not closing, nobody's too happy. EBITDA is obviously important, but you do kind of get conjoined with the sales organization. And my point is, rather than saying, it's not me, it's her, and here's how I can prove it. My pipeline is robust of years, and my CAC is on point, and all the things that should be happening. The dirty little secret is I'm getting blown out one way or the other if sales aren't where they're supposed to be. So why am I even going to have this argument and make an enemy of somebody who's an otherwise great person, my colleague in sales? The current is going to take us all out. So don't worry about it. That's my philosophy. Bring 2 bullets because we're both going.
Yep. Rich.
So a lot of what you've been talking about is upsell with this account-based marketing strategy, and I think with the comment around intent, how do you sort of frame being customer-led when you're doing account-based marketing, right? So we're always open when we go to market, like product solutions, right? But if the customer is not in the market for it, they're not in the market for it. So how are you kind of really personalizing your touch points based on that?
They should be on the list if you don't think there's plausible reason that you're going to get more money from them. So, although we obviously are supportive of attention too. So if we see like people aren't using the platform at the level that they used to, we might start to market to our existing customers just to see what's up, make sure that they're still, remembering us. But I wouldn't have them on my sort of ABN hit list, Rachel, if we didn't think there was a reasonable proposition to grow that account. So it's like we're still supporting it. It's just not like an ABM focus for me. That's how I think about it. If there's not a growth opportunity, it can't make the short list.
Scott, we were talking about demand a little bit earlier too. And Adam, our other agency friend, he started using the term demand capture rather than demand creation. You're right. They're in the market looking for things that are related to them to try to capture as much creating a demand that they may not have anyway. Yeah, there might be some crossover there, but I thought it was kind of interesting.
Totally. And I do think that one that's a great use case of intent data is that it's not one thing. You don't have to create a static list like this is intent people or intent accounts, right? You can create propensity, can power very powerful propensity to buy models, or what the Sixth Sense calls it, predictive analytics, where you can be doing awareness marketing to people that may not be showing significant amounts of intent. And you can be marrying trained with other signals to say, oh, these are really, we're at the, the really low in the funnel, or we're getting close to a marketing qualified lead, even without a form fill or hand raise, right? So there's all kinds of ways in which I think a very thoughtful and considered account-based strategy can power full funnel go to market, right?
Yeah, I feel like when people talk about intent, probably ourselves included, now enough to look at all of our marketing materials, and like there's a lot. It's really easy to say that intent, like just quickly in the elevator, is about the who, and I actually think it's much more about the when and with what conversation or message. Because your who, like again, if I just go back to my own shop, like for us to sell a direct subscription to our data, like we typically sell into big organizations, large centralized data teams, like that list ain't that long. So my who, just by definition, is kind of defined. How I'm really using intent data is like, okay, but when should I be having what conversation on those who, and less about like that actually, I know who the who is. It's about how do I use my resources at what time to have what conversation. I don't know if we answered Rachel's question at all, but we just...
No, I think the crystal ball of intent data really is in many ways around powering the conversation. Do you mean?
It's about like the echo chamber of like, you're like, here's the account. It's like, here are the products we need to sell. It's like, well, it's not going to happen no matter what if they're never going to be in the market for that. And I think I'm talking about like...
Wait, to vote, so we would say with intent, like don't spend time, like just monitor
Yes and
it.
no, but
Don't spend time on it.
But wait, but it's worth tying back to the previous conversation, which is by the time they're reaching out, they're what 87% already down the line that someone else they've been considered by. So to that point, if you just sit around waiting for them to hand raise and be in market, right? So yes, Peter.
As we're trying to define ABM, is it kind of like a scaled limit or focus limit to what is really ABM? Because when I think of like Brittney, you and I in a huge company, right, where you're selling to biggest companies on earth, they'll be like, oh, we only need to sell to these 30, 50 banks, which are the controlling all the money in the world. And I only need to sell them AI and cybersecurity and consulting and this and this and this and this and this to only the top several thousand executives. At this point, I'm just doing advertising. I mean, is this really account-based marketing, or I just...
Yeah.
And that's why it's like I'll make their own list.
I guess the question is maybe is account-based marketing everything that you're doing?
B2B. I would.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I think there was. I think one could argue, and I'm not sure. This is almost jumping off. Is B2B marketing implicitly account-based marketing as you're selling your account? I think that that's where you come. That's where it becomes a strategic.
You know what I'm saying? Like
a strategic point of view.
Totally. We do have a reputation layer where we'll talk about things that are
like direct call to actually, and they will be like in a whole vertical or against a whole persona.
Yeah.
But that's like sub 10% of what we're doing. So there is an interplay, and I maybe call that the B word, but we call it for reputation, but it's the same deal.
Yeah.
But it's just sort of a force multiplier for our ABM. Yeah.
But I don't think. I'm sorry, Brittney. You.
No, I was just gonna kind of echo what he said. I mean, that's the other half of my role is like, what are those sort of bigger brand gaps that we need to close in the marketplace? And that is an audience targeting, not an account level targeting. And when we get into that realm of kind of brand to consideration, that's when we start to get into the account, to get into those specific functional messages or sector messages that we need to continue to drive.
But to your point, I think that you can have a really thoughtful account-based marketing strategies should be considering brand and should be considering all of these things, and and because at the end of the day, you're selling into accounts. I mean, but that doesn't mean that all B2B marketing is account-based marketing. There's plenty of people who are running the classic demand waterfall, the serious decisions sort of MQL the play, which is not really the same play.
Is it right? Exactly. That's like where do you see the balance between having both or maybe not having both?
I think that's what how I interpret all of you saying. It's a strategy, not a tactic, is exactly in response to that question.
Yeah.
Which is that a thoughtful account-based marketing strategy considers your holistic go-to-market. On that note,
Drop the mic.
on that note, I think was that anyone want to say anything else? So should we wrap this show up? Get a drink.
Okay.
Hey, thank you all so much. This is great. We got some more like fun stuff, but the work, as Barbara Stedman says, the work is done. Now the fun.